Aloha class, my name is Kel Guillermo, and today I'm joined by my teammates Sean Madden and Garrison Sandberg, and we're giving a leadership presentation on Coach Greg Popovich. So grab your NBA tickets and let's get started on our presentation today. So you're probably asking, who is Greg Popovich? Well, he's also known as Coach Pop or Pop, but Pop, he is not as well known as the other household NBA names that you hear every day, like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or other famous head coaches like Phil Jackson. He's one of the best NBA coaches of all time, and he is the current head coach and general manager of the San Antonio Spurs, and he's been the coach for 22 years. He's also the head coach for the USA basketball team that participates in the Summer Olympics. And he's the longest tenured active coach in both the NBA and all major sports leagues in the US, including the National Football League, the National Hockey League, Major League Baseball, and Major League Soccer. He's a 3-time NBA Coach of the Year and has won an NBA championship 5 times with the Spurs. He's also the NBA coach with the most wins in NBA history, and he's only missed the playoffs twice in his 22 seasons as a coach with the Spurs. So this just shows how great of a leader Greg Popovich is. So this is a quote that grabbed our team's attention from Coach Pop, and it reads, "It's not about any one person. You've got to get over yourself and realize that it takes a group to get this thing done." This relates to our presentation today because we're going to discuss the leadership style of teamwork that has made Coach Popovich so well known in the NBA today. So why did we choose Coach Pop? Since all of our group members watch NBA basketball and we're huge fans, we figured we would choose to do a report on one of the greatest NBA coaches in history. So as you guys can see, this is our headshots, and right next to our headshots are our favorite NBA teams. Garrison's team is the Golden State Warriors. Mine's, unfortunately, is the Phoenix Suns, who have been horrible recently, and Sean's is the Los Angeles Lakers. The funny thing is, all three of our teams are rivals because we're all in the same division, but we all grown up watching our favorite teams play Coach Popovich, and we admire his coaching style. So that's why we decided to do a presentation on him today. Now we're going to be discussing our agenda of our presentation today. Although it is long, we want to ensure we hit all the points that are required in our project today. We're going to be discussing the contextual landscape of the NBA, the influences in leadership style for Coach Pop, and his formative experiences that built him to be the leader that he is today. We will also discuss core business concepts, including his collective management style and how he balances positive feedback and confrontation, and current performance and long-term player development. We're also going to talk about how he balances leadership in his organization and the adjustments he's made as a coach over the years. We're also going to talk about his vision, which includes his organizational culture and style, and how he differentiates himself as a coach in the NBA. We're going to talk about the quick growth and retention, the intent, means, and outcome framework, and why he's such a great leader. We'll cap it all off with a conclusion of how this relates to the business world and recommendations based off of whether or not you enjoyed our presentation on Coach Pop today.
Hi everyone, so onto the contextual landscape. The San Antonio Spurs have been coached by Greg Popovich for 24 seasons. This is not common for an NBA coach, but there are a few reasons for this. An, an event that changed the San Antonio Spurs forever was when Tim Duncan was drafted in 1997. Many knew Duncan was special, however, no one knew how special he was going to become. Much of his success is credited to Greg Popovich. Duncan went on to win 5 NBA titles, 2 MVPs, 15 All-Star appearances, all with the Spurs and Popovich. Another reason that changed the social landscape in the NBA at this time was how Popovich changed the value of foreign players. Popovich and the Spurs organization created a diverse roster that redefined the impact international players had on the league. Part of what made Popovich the man he is today was his upbringing. He uses his experiences from the integrated neighborhoods he grew up in and traveling the world as a player and coach to make a positive impact. He's the son of a Croatian father and Serbian mother who grew up in the projects of East Chicago, Indiana. Popovich also credited his time in the military for making him conscious of the world, in particular his time playing for the US Armed Forces basketball team in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. During his senior season, he was a leading scorer and team captain. He would eventually become the Air Force Academy assistant coach for basketball. 8 years later, he became the assistant coach of the San Antonio Spurs to work his way to become the head coach. Additionally, during this time period, the basketball world was changing. Popovich and the Spurs were a part of two NBA lockouts. The first one in 1998 over the player's salary. The second was in 2011 when the owners and players disagreed on the split of revenue and salary cap structure. According to the Zygius leadership article, it says, decade by decade, the nation's mood shifted constantly. Entrepreneurs, managers, and leaders each seized the new opportunities and responded to the corresponding challenges in different ways. The reason why I bring this up is because although NBA basketball is a sport, it's also a business. The article continues by saying the notion of Zygius might be intangible, but the risks of contextual insensitivity are concrete. If you can't read the business landscape, you risk leading your organization in the wrong direction or choosing the wrong successors. Now on to Popovich's leadership style. While Greg Popovich has the best NBA coaching record in history, what he does in the locker room is just as important. He influences his players in ways to educate and build their trust. He said relationships with people are what it's all about. You have to make the players realize you care about them. As far as education goes, one thing he is known for doing is giving pop quizzes. NBA player Harrison Barnes said every day he's got something different. He's got a history lesson with a quote from some general during the Civil War, then he's got geography. He has a different way of trying to see where you are mentally. Popovich used this as a way to educate players and build team chemistry. Popovich influenced the league pretty early on and changed how not only his team played, but others as well. Everyone in the NBA watched San Antonio and decided they wanted to play that way, says Sun manager Ryan McDonough. It's a copycat league. It was a good strategy, making the extra pass and flying down the floor in transition and shooting threes before the defense could get set in. Defenses are so good today that if you give them time to settle in, it's almost impossible to score. When the Spurs won the NBA championship in 2014, every team in the league was passing an additional 4.5 times more per game. Today in the league, there is a dominant force by three-point shooters, as you can see with teams like Golden State Warriors or Houston Rockets. This is largely due to Popovich's evolving coaching strategy. Popovich has the most wins in NBA history, regular season and playoffs. He's led the Spurs to a winning record in 22 full seasons as head coach, surpassing Phil Jackson for the most consecutive winning seasons in NBA history. During his tenure, the Spurs have had a winning record against every other NBA team. Popovich has led the Spurs to 5 of their NBA titles and is only one of 5 coaches in the NBA history to win 5 titles. As far as coaching goes, many think Popovich is the greatest the NBA has ever seen. Greg Popovich continues to have an overall impact on not just basketball, but the world. He continues to answer during crisis and hardship. Popovich stands up for what he believes is right and is a huge advocate for ending racism. In February 2018, Popovich explained why he thinks it's more important for the NBA to celebrate Black History Month. He told reporters, I think it's pretty obvious. The league is made up of a lot of Black guys. To honor that and understand, it's pretty simplistic. How would you ignore that? But more importantly, we live in a racist country that hasn't figured it out yet, and it's always important to bring attention to it, even if it angers some people. The point is, you have to keep it in front of everyone's nose so they understand it still has to be taken care of, and we have a lot of work to do.
So first, let's talk about his formative experiences. Coach Pop graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 1970, where he played for the basketball team as a point guard, and in his senior season was a team captain and leading scorer. So I wanted to bring up that he went to the Air Force Academy because it shows why he is so disciplined, but I also want to talk about how he was a point guard. If you don't understand the game of basketball, the point guard is basically the leader of the team. He's like the quarterback before a basketball team, where he calls the plays and he calls the shots and he passes the ball around to the team. So this probably explains why he's such a great leader, because he is a natural leader and his formative experiences playing point guard in his basketball career. He also served 5 years of active duty service in the United States Air Force. And during his stint in the Air Force, he was deployed to Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union while completed Air Force Central Intelligence training. We also want to bring this up because it explains why he's probably so disciplined in his leadership style. He's a very hard-nosed person, which we'll talk about later on in this presentation. And if you guys look to the left, this is a headshot during his time at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Now let's talk about the core business concepts of Coach Pop. He has 5 main ones: own your luck, do your work, unleash your anger, but strategically, widen your world, and knowing your people. The first one of owning your luck is simple. He likes to give credit to his players, coaches, and other workers in the organization of the San Antonio Spurs for his success as a leader. Doing this allows his team to respect him more, which builds team chemistry, which leads to more success. Do your work. This is probably the most simple one. If you're given a task, complete it successfully without failing, then the team is more likely to win and succeed. Then third, unleash your anger, but strategically. Coach Pop is well known for being outspoken towards NBA referees who make horrible calls. And he does this strategically where he plans out his anger, because if he's angry all the time, his point's not going to get across. But if he does it strategically, then his point gets across and is more effective. The fourth of widening your world is important because Coach Pop emphasizes diversity. He's drafted international players from around the world in the NBA draft compared to other teams who tend to draft more players from the United States. He also has women on his coaching staff. Just having players from all around the world and diversifying your team allows you to have different perspectives and to be more successful. And the fifth and last point, know your people. Coach Popovich is well known for doing team bondings, and he likes to have individual private dinners with his players so he can understand his people more, because the more you understand your workers, then the more likely you are to understand their pain points and you're more likely to succeed. So these are Coach Popovich's core business concepts. Now let's talk about Greg Popovich's management style, which is collective. Coach Pop has a collective management style, which is excellent in capitalizing on players' strengths and masking their weaknesses. And this is seen through their pass-heavy offense. Basically, a pass-heavy offense is where the offense passes the ball all the way until someone is open for a shot where they get to shoot the shot, so that increases efficiency in scoring the ball. This is a lot different than isolation plays we see from the greatest players of all time, like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, where they just call for the ball and everyone clears out and it's just them versus their defender, and they shoot over their defender and they use their talents to beat their defender. It is argued by NBA analysts and fans that the Spurs championship team did not even have the best players in the NBA. So if we look at the San Antonio Spurs dynasty and their championship runs, they had 3 main players on their team that contributed to the success of the team. It was Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. Now, it's without a doubt, Tim Duncan is probably one of the best power forwards of all time, but Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, although they've been NBA All-Stars, they're not really discussed as being the best in their position at all time. And actually, if you look at statistics-wise, Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, their career statistics are maybe around 13 points a game, which is good, but it's not great. And it's important to look at this because this just shows that the team did not need the best players to win. This shows that teamwork at the end of the day is what will lead to the success of winning championships. And Coach Pop proved that with the talent of players that he had. Next, we're going to talk about how Coach Pop balances positive feedback and confrontation. So Coach Pop balances the both of these, and confrontation is seen through his hard-nosed style of coaching. He's really known for disciplining his players during timeouts whenever they make mistakes, and is known for his criticism towards referees on bad calls, which I mentioned earlier in his core business concepts. But the positive feedback is also seen in his encouragement and praise to his players during interviews after games. He'd always talk about one player. Oh, he's such a great player. He made this great play today. And if it wasn't for that play, we wouldn't have won the game. So he does positive feedback in that sense. And positive feedback is also shown through his consistent lineup rotation changes. If you're performing well in practice, then you earn more minutes in the rotation. So that is how positive feedback and confrontation is balanced with Coach Pop. Next, we're going to talk about current performance and player development and what is more important to him. So, first, we're going to talk about how Coach Pop balances the both. As a general manager of the Spurs, Coach Pop shows patience in his draft picks by developing their skill sets and talents throughout their career. And this is a great case right here because, for example, let's look at Jonathan Simmons' career. And on the right, that's a picture of Jonathan Simmons. Jonathan Simmons was a player who was not drafted in the NBA draft. So basically, if you're not drafted, that means you do not get selected to be on a team. There's a lot of players who get drafted who do not even make it into the NBA. So the odds of an undrafted player making it onto a roster is pretty impossible. So Jonathan Simmons was playing in the NBA D League for 3 seasons. The NBA D League is the NBA Developmental League, which basically means you're placed in the bottom tier, and the odds of you being in the NBA will most likely not happen. Although John Simmons was playing in the D League for 3 years, Coach Popovich, as a general manager, realized his talents and signed him on to the Spurs and used him and masked his weaknesses. And Jonathan Simmons ended up being a great player in the NBA. So current performance is also an important factor for Coach Pop since live results dictates who wins or loses a game in basketball. So Coach Pop often makes adjustments during games to coach his team to victories, and he'll do this by calling timeouts and adjusting play styles throughout the game. Now let's talk about how Coach Pop balances leadership. Coach Pop is the directive in calling the shots for the team. Although he is mainly the directive due to the nature of his position, the team also has autonomy. Coach Pop hires a diverse set of assistant coaches to also assist with the team. In 2014, he hired Becky Hammon, the first female assistant coach in the history of the NBA. Pop hired Hammon to diversify his coaching staff and to give him different perspectives. So if you look at the photo of the left, this is a picture of Becky Hammon and Coach Pop coaching the team during an NBA game. And he actually gives a lot of props to his assistant coaches, and he lets his assistant coaches run a lot of plays. A lot of head coaches in the NBA, they don't let their assistant coaches run plays for them, but Coach Pop is really open, and he allows his assistant coaches to run some plays for the team. So that's how he balances his leadership. Now let's talk about Coach Pop's coaching adjustments over the years. Although he is not only the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, he is also the Team USA basketball Olympics coach. So coaching a team full of the best players in the world is a lot different than coaching his traditional team of the Spurs. The US Olympic team has the best players in the NBA all on one team. So imagine instead normally coaching a team that usually has 2 all-stars, you're coaching a team with 13 all-stars that have to share the ball at the same time. So Pop makes coaching adjustments based on the basketball culture and brings diverse coaches on his team for new perspectives. So an example is on the right, we have a picture of LaMarcus Aldridge. Coach Pop adjusted his coaching style to allow Aldridge to start shooting 3-pointers. LaMarcus Aldridge is a power forward. Power forwards don't usually shoot 3-pointers. They stay inside the key where they can get rebounds and shoot shots closer. But he adjusted his coaching style to allow LaMarcus Aldridge to improve on his strengths so he can shoot 3-pointers. So this is somehow an example of how he made coaching adjustments over the years.
Hello, my name is Garrison, and I'll be presenting my portion starting with Greg Popovich's vision. His vision is to have players put the team before themselves. Pretty much, this leadership style is based on there's no iron team. By this, I mean that he emphasizes that his whole team should focus on being team players who act selfless. Essentially, Greg Popovich's leadership style emphasizes selflessness to promote his entire team in their efforts to score and defend. With this emphasis, Greg Popovich influences his team to engage in more passing of the ball, which allows more teammates an equal opportunity to shoot so that one person is not shooting all the time. Passing the ball is good because it allows the team offensively to exploit their team members' strengths and improve on the overall chance of scoring. His strategically focused is his attention towards his building of team camaraderie. This becomes clear when it becomes to him in an open interview saying it's not all about the X's and O's, but about the team. Anyone can write plays, but what it focuses on, what he focuses on, is building character of the players to build them to put the team before themselves. This is apparent when within the video of him being interviewed that I will show now.
But everybody sort of knows O's and X's. That's, in my opinion, not really the most important part of a program. If you don't know how to draw a play, or you don't know what to do out of bounds, or at the end of a game, well, then you probably shouldn't be coaching. So I assume we all know that stuff. There's no magic. I don't have any secret plays. And if I had one, then 400 people would have the same play. So I don't think that makes sense. But it's about organization. It's about discipline. It's about building the blocks, about relationships with your players. How do you get something out of somebody who's selfish or doesn't really compete the way you would like, or so on and so forth. All those things, I think, have more to do with winning and losing than being able to draw a certain kind of play. So with that, if there's somebody that has something specific that they want to ask me about our program, I'll be happy to unload the whole deal. The question is about character, that we talk a lot about character, and can you really change someone? If someone is selfish, can you change that and make him or her a part of the team? My bottom line is usually they am what they am. Very bad English. They am what they am. So if this kid is selfish, you're not changing him. It's going to come out in the wash. It's going to come out in an important part of the game, and you've got to get rid of him. Bye-bye. The fiber of your team is the beginning of everything that you do. We talk about, we want players who have gotten over themselves. If you've gotten over yourself, you know it's not about you. It's about this person, and what we do as a group. You say, well, how do you figure that out? Well, that's our job.
Greg Popovich is coaching for 20 plus years. He helped improve the culture of the organization because he has created a team environment type of emphasis for the Spurs. With this being said, he does not allow players to come into the organization without knowing the skills that are needed to thrive in this team environment. For instance, James Harden would not be someone that Bobovich would hire because he can be a ball hog, which does not fit in the culture of the Spurs team. Along with this, he influences many other teams as their culture in the culture. As we can see, it helps teach Steve Kerr the fundamentals of being a coach. He has developed a strong relationship with Steve Kerr and influences him to reach the team players as well. This led him to continue that practice and implement the strategy with this team which is tremendously successful. Greg Popovich's style of coaching is unique and is very different from other coaches. He was one of the coaches that started renovating in motive to put the team before the individual. Popovich's style has been different from a lot of other coaches like Collins. Doug Collins is has compared Doug Collins is compared as the coach of the Bulls from 1986 to 1989 and encourages Michael Jordan to be a ball hog. However, his coaching style is very unsuccessful for him and his team, which his team did not win any championships. This being said, he has created a team that is incredibly successful at a rapid rate. Not only does he create a good team, but he has continued to do this for 20 plus years because his leadership style, he teaches his team to not be bogs and selfish, which allows the team to flourish and allow the team to utilize their strengths. Specifically, Popovich states that there's three things to make him successful: the X's and O's of his system, his cultivation of an atmosphere where players desire to put the team in the system above the individual glory, and he focuses on developing financial environment, familial environment that relieves the pressure of the game. These things are all factors that he helps him flourish in his environment as a coach.
Starting with the intent means outcomes framework. For intent, Popovich's goal was for the Spurs to be a championship team. While other achievements in the league are noticed, the main thing that is talked about is how many championships a player or a coach has. Championships are what motivate organizations, players, and coaches. On to means, Popovich transformed the Spurs organization drastically. In 1998, Forbes valued the San Antonio Spurs organization at $122 million. The success of the team and Popovich turning things around, the organization is now valued at over $1 billion. Popovich has overcome many challenges, starting with the small market of the Spurs and building it to what it is today. He brought in the idea of the Spurs way. Essentially, it is a culture built around a value system. It works because everyone buys into it, from the role players to the star players, from assistant coaches to Coach Pop himself. Popovich uses a transformational leadership style and approach. For outcomes, there's not a lot that Popovich hasn't achieved in the league. He has come into the Spurs organization not only proven to be successful, but also bring them multiple championships. Popovich's followers are much better off listening to him and taking his advice. He has proven this on and off the court. So was Popovich a great leader? I think some of Popovich's greatest challenges has been fighting is actually off the court. He's constantly advocating for everyone to open their eyes and see that racism is still a huge issue in today's world. The way Popovich has built the Spurs has made everyone accountable, including himself. There was, of course, pressure from the Spurs management, players, and fans. However, they were successful. I think that the hardest critic of Greg Popovich is probably himself. When you're a coach for over 20 years, you're bound to make mistakes. One of the most recent mistakes was how he coached LaMarcus Aldridge. He said in an interview, "He just didn't feel comfortable and it's 98.7% on me. I tried to change him." For NBA teams, mistakes cost them potentially tens of millions of dollars, a playoff appearance, or even a championship. It can affect draft picks and free agencies. Overall, coaching has a huge impact on teams, and usually, if a team has a bad season, the coach is the first person to be fired. Greg Popovich is a fantastic example of leaders for our future. He strives for greatness on and off the court. He brings players in and treats them as family. Not only does he educate players, but he gives them advice and opens them up to experiences they wouldn't normally have. His voice is heard by many and is respected when he's talking. He stands up and says the things that he's not afraid to say without fear of backlash. He served our country in the United States Air Force and continues to give back and fight for our country.
In conclusion, what can we learn from Coach Greg Popovich and his leadership style, and how can we really apply it to business? It's really interesting when we look at sports, because sports has a lot of aspects to it that can relate to business, aspects such as teamwork, talent acquisition, and more. So what we can learn from Coach Pop is that emphasizing teamwork and team chemistry boosts workplace production. And if you're disciplined, that brings stability and structure for your team. Diversity in the workplace is also important because it brings different perspectives to the table, and holding workers accountable ensures that the team will be successful at the end. And ensuring that you pivot your leadership strategies can create opportunities as well for your team. So these are the 6 main points that we can learn and we take away from Coach Popovich's leadership style. Now, we would like to conclude our presentation today on some recommendations for you. So if you enjoyed this presentation and you want to learn more about Coach Greg Popovich's leadership style, Clayton Jeffries has an entire series of books on successful NBA coaches and their leadership styles as well. He's written a book on Doc Rivers, Steve Kerr, Brad Stevens, and many other NBA coaches. And it's cool to read these books because a lot of lessons can be learned in sports teamwork and can be applied in the world of business, as I mentioned in our last slide. So now we're going to go into Kahoot, which Sean and Garrison will be running today. And I hope you've been paying attention in our presentation today, because if you come first place in answering all our Kahoot questions, we will give you a free pint from Lucy's Lab Creamery. Lucy's Lab Creamery is a student-run ice cream shop located in the South Shore Market in Kaka'ako, and we're very glad to have them sponsor this presentation today. So good luck, and Sean, let's ring up that Kahoot. Thank you.